Before sunrise, a red salmon hangs beneath a roaring waterfall. Her fins are torn, her body bruised, and her strength is fading. Above the river, brown bears wait with patient, practiced eyes. Behind her lies an ocean she crossed for thousands of miles. Ahead lies the small stream where her life first began. A command older than memory is pulling her upstream. She has returned to create life and then to die. This is the story of Nerka, a female sockeye salmon. Her journey began nearly 5 years before this final climb. She was not born beneath sunlight or open water. She began as one orange egg buried under cold river gravel. Around her rested thousands of brothers and sisters. Their mother had reached this river after her own brutal migration. She turned sideways and struck the riverbed again and again. Slowly, she carved a shallow nest called a redd. Then she released her eggs while a male fertilized them. A female sockeye may lay roughly 2,000 to 5,000 eggs. After spawning, their mother swept gravel over the fragile eggs. Beneath those stones, Nerka could not swim or escape. Clean water had to flow between the pieces of gravel. That moving water delivered the oxygen every embryo required. Too much fine mud could seal the spaces between stones. A winter flood could tear the entire nest apart. Aquatic insects and small fish could uncover and eat them. Winter settled over the river and snow covered the banks. Below the surface, tiny bodies were being constructed in darkness. Nerka formed eyes, a spine, muscles, and a beating heart. Cold water slowed her development, stretching it across many months. If the water became too warm, oxygen levels could fall. Around Nerka, some eggs turned pale and stopped growing. Yet her small chamber remained open to oxygen-rich water. Eventually, the shell around her began to weaken. With repeated movements, Nerka broke free from the egg. But she was not ready to enter the river. A bright orange yolk sac still hung beneath her body. At this stage, she was called an alevin. It fed her while her organs and swimming muscles developed. She remained hidden in darkness, wedged between rough stones. But the same shelter could become a deadly prison. More silt might block her path and suffocate her. For several weeks, she consumed the remaining yolk. When the sac finally disappeared, hunger forced her upward. One night, Nerka pushed through the last layer of gravel. She rose toward the surface and swallowed a bubble of air. That air helped fill her swim bladder for buoyancy control. Now she was a fry, capable of swimming and feeding. She was also visible to almost everything that hunted fish. Nerka followed the current from the nursery stream toward a lake. Still, every meter offered a new place to die. Larger trout waited behind rocks where small fish passed. Kingfishers watched the surface from branches above the water. Nerka survived by staying near shade, roots, and sunken wood. She fed on zooplankton, insect larvae, and tiny crustaceans. Every meal required leaving cover for a few dangerous seconds. Dark oval markings appeared along both sides of her body. They broke up her outline among shadows, stones, and plants. Sometimes a single moment separated escape from a predator's mouth. Sockeye juveniles often remain in freshwater for 1 to 3 years. For Nerka, the lake became both a school and battlefield. She learned where currents delivered the most drifting food. She learned to freeze when a larger fish approached. No parent guided her, and no second chance was promised. The environment itself could become an enemy. Heavy rain sent muddy torrents through the feeding grounds. Strong currents swept smaller fish away from sheltered water. During hot summers, shallow areas warmed and lost oxygen. Young salmon needed cold, connected, complex habitat to survive. Rocks, woody debris, side channels, and shaded banks mattered greatly. As seasons passed, Nerka grew stronger and more alert. Then one spring, her body began changing from the inside. Longer daylight, rising water, and temperature signaled departure. Silver scales spread across her sides like polished metal. She was becoming a smolt, prepared to enter the sea. The change involved far more than appearance. Freshwater constantly pushed water into a fish's body. The salty ocean would pull water out instead. Nerka's gills, kidneys, and hormones had to reverse their strategy. Special cells in her gills became better at removing salt. Without this transformation, she could dehydrate in the ocean. Nerka joined thousands of smolts moving downstream during spring. They often traveled at dusk or night to avoid hunters. Large fish waded in deep pools near narrow passages. Otters hunted along the banks, while seals watched the estuary. The closer Nerka came to the sea, the danger increased. At the estuary, fresh water mixed with the incoming tide. The changing salinity gave her body time to adjust. Food was abundant, helping her gain strength rapidly. A smolt that fed too boldly could disappear instantly. Nerka had to balance hunger against fear every hour. Finally, she crossed the invisible boundary into the Pacific. The tiny fish from a gravel nest entered an immense world. The ocean offered richer food and faster growth. It also offered storms, cold currents, and hunters from below. Over the next 1 to 3 years, Nerka traveled widely. She followed productive waters across the North Pacific. She ate zooplankton, krill, small crustaceans, and occasional fish. Her body changed from grams to several kilograms. Predatory fish struck from dark water beneath the school. Seals and sea lions chased salmon with explosive speed. In some regions, killer whales also hunted returning adults. Unusual ocean temperatures shifted prey away from familiar grounds. When food became scarce, young salmon grew slowly or died. Nets could capture a lifetime of survival within seconds. Nerka survived by reading the movement of other fish. Her silver body reflected the surrounding light. From above, her dark back blended with deep water. From below, her pale belly matched the bright surface. This countershading reduced detection, but never removed danger. The ocean never became safe. Nerka simply became capable. By roughly 4 or 5 years of age, she was mature. Her body carried enough stored energy for one final migration. An internal biological signal changed the direction of her life. She left the ocean feeding grounds and turned toward land. Finding one river among an entire coastline seems impossible. Far offshore, evidence suggests they sense Earth's magnetic field. Near the coast, Nerka began sampling the chemistry of water. Years earlier, she had memorized those smells while leaving home. At one river mouth, the chemical message felt wrong. At another, a faint pattern awakened an ancient memory. The water matched a route recorded during her youth. Nerka entered the river and left the ocean behind. From that moment, the journey became a countdown. Like most returning Pacific salmon, she largely stopped feeding. Her remaining energy existed as fat, muscle, and stored nutrients. Every kilometer upstream spent a portion that could not return. She needed that same energy for swimming, eggs, and nest building. Her entire body was now committed to reproduction. The current pressed against her face and gills. Nerka searched for slower water behind rocks and river bends. She rested briefly, then pushed forward again. Sharp stones scraped her scales and opened small wounds. Each injury created another chance for infection. At waterfalls, hundreds of salmon gathered below the white water. They jumped, failed, fell backward, and tried again. Some struck rock and never recovered. Nerka launched upward, but the current threw her down. On her second attempt, she hit the edge of a stone. On the third, she cleared the drop and reached calmer water. The waterfall was also a feeding station for bears. Brown bears recognized the exact places salmon became vulnerable. A salmon leaping into open air could not change direction. One snap of powerful jaws could end years of survival. A bear lunged as Nerka crossed the final edge. Its teeth closed behind her tail by only a small distance. Migrating in enormous groups offered one strange protection. Predators could eat many salmon, but not every salmon. The river became so crowded that individual odds improved. Nerka survived partly because thousands traveled beside her. Many companions became food, allowing others to continue. Human changes created obstacles evolution had not prepared her for. Dams could block routes or alter the timing of river flow. Logging and development could remove cooling shade from riverbanks. Climate change increased the risk of extreme heat and drought. Warm water raised metabolic stress while holding less oxygen. A salmon near exhaustion could die only kilometers from home. Nerka continued through water that grew warmer each afternoon. At night, cooler temperatures allowed her to move farther. Her silver ocean color now began transforming dramatically. Her sides turned brilliant red while her head became greenish. Males nearby developed larger humps and hooked jaws. Nerka's own body diverted resources toward thousands of eggs. This transformation was beautiful, but it was also destructive. Her body was spending itself to complete one purpose. At last, familiar water flowed across her gills. Nerka reached the gravel beds near where she had hatched. She searched for stones of the correct size. The current needed enough speed to carry oxygen through gravel. Too much force could wash eggs away. Too little movement could leave them without sufficient oxygen. She tested several places before choosing one. Turning on her side, Nerka beat the riverbed with her tail. Loose gravel lifted and rolled downstream. She repeated the motion dozens, then hundreds of times. The skin on her tail wore away against stone. Blood mixed with the water, but she continued digging. Slowly, a shallow depression formed beneath the current. A male moved close while rivals fought nearby. When the nest was ready, Nerka released part of her eggs. The male released sperm into the water at the same moment. Fertilized eggs settled into spaces between the stones. Nerka moved slightly upstream and began digging again. The displaced gravel drifted backward, covering the first group. She repeated the process across several smaller nests. Altogether, a female sockeye may release thousands of eggs. Not every egg will be fertilized. Not every fertilized egg will survive the first storm. Yet producing many creates enough chances for continuation. The strategy is not to protect one perfect offspring. It is to place thousands into nature's terrible lottery. After the final eggs were covered, Nerka remained nearby. She had reached the destination that shaped her entire life. But there would be no peaceful journey back to sea. Her energy reserves were almost completely exhausted. Her immune system weakened, and wounds began worsening. Fungus spread across damaged skin on many spawning salmon. Within days or weeks, most would die. Nerka drifted into a shallow area beside the gravel. Her gills moved slowly as the current passed through them. The river that carried her away now held her again. Eventually, she could no longer keep her body upright. She rolled onto one side, made one final movement, and stopped. Her death was not the end of her ecological role. For years, Nerka had gathered nutrients from the Pacific Ocean. Her body carried marine nitrogen, phosphorus, carbon, and minerals. Now those materials returned to a freshwater valley. Insects and small fish fed directly on salmon remains. Bears dragged carcasses onto the forest floor. Eagles, wolves, and scavengers carried pieces farther inland. Microbes broke the remaining tissue into usable nutrients. Plants absorbed some of those nutrients through the soil. In this way, salmon connect ocean, river, and forest. Their bodies feed ecosystems far beyond the spawning stream. Young fish may even benefit from nutrients released by adults. The parent dies, while the environment supporting offspring becomes richer. It is a cycle built from sacrifice, movement, and return. Beneath the gravel, Nerka's eggs continued developing in darkness. Most would never reach the open ocean. Some would be buried, eaten, infected, or swept away. A small number would emerge as fragile fry. Fewer would survive their years in freshwater. Fewer still would cross the Pacific and return as adults. But the cycle does not require every salmon to survive. It only requires enough to find their way home. One day, another silverfish may recognize this river's scent. She may climb the same falls and avoid the same bears. She may dig another nest beside the stones. And inside one orange egg, the story will begin again. For a salmon, home is not where life becomes easy. It is where life is given away. The river is birthplace, road, battlefield, and final resting place. Nerka crossed an ocean to return to one small stream. She arrived wounded, exhausted, and unable to turn back. Yet beneath the gravel, her future was already moving. Her life ended, but the journey continued.